Greetings, Earthlings and any other planetary beings that may be watching this somewhere in the solar system. You're watching a new episode of Kylie Retrospectives, a series in which we delve into the discography of none other than Miss Kylie Minogue in the lead up to her new album Disco, which is coming out on the 6th of November 2020 at the time of recording. I am ElliXia Valentine, Malvern's answer to Heidi Range. It's a little bit hot in here if you ask me, so it's just as well that this week we are taking it back to 2001 to review the hottest album of Kylie's career, Fever. Today's look is inspired by the album's overall vibe. There's a lot of white in the imagery, a lot of silver as well, so I'm going for a sort of sci-fi, space age chic. I'm also feeling a little bit like a sexy Gandalf, so do with that information as you will. I'm even wearing a Kylie Minogue lipstick. Yes, Kylie has her own brand of makeup too. Not another celebrity with a very similar name who tried to trademark it. There's only one Kylie in my book. Also for my look I'm going for straight hair because 2001 had a lot of straight hair, didn't it? Fever was released on the 1st of October 2001 and it went straight to #1 in the UK albums chart. It yielded 4 singles, all of which became huge global smashes, including that little known song, what's it called? The one that goes, la la la, la 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 la, or something like that. Oh, what is it called? It gets stuck in my head all the time. What is it called? I am of course joking. I know that was some fabulous acting. But of course, we're talking about none other than the mega global smash, Can't Get You Out of My Head. It also included In Your Eyes, Love at First Sight, and Coming to My World as singles, all of which have become Kylie classics and huge fan favourites. There was also the Kylie Fever 2000 tour. There was also the Kylie Fever 2002 tour, which was also massively successful as well. This album really is Kylie at the peak of her career, at her most influential, and it is her biggest selling album worldwide, and it's the home of her biggest selling single worldwide. So, we've got a lot of iconography on our hands today. So let's begin. Overall, the album's sound is a continuation from Light Years. It kind of takes the disco sound from Light Years and fine-tunes it to make it a little more sleeker, a little bit classier, and definitely a lot more sexier. Light Years was very camp, and whilst Fever has elements of camp in it as well, I mean, what Kylie released doesn't have a little bit of camp in it. Fever's a lot more stylish. I said in my previous video that Light Years was a cruise ship, and the title track Light Years takes that cruise ship into space and turns it into a spaceship. And then Fever is that journey on the spaceship. And maybe on that spaceship there's a lot of sex with cyborgs and aliens, I don't know. So we will start with the album's singles. Of course, the first one we have is Can't Get You Out of My Head. Now, what can I say about Can't Get You Out of My Head that hasn't been said so many times already? Everything about the song is iconic, from the La 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 hook, to the music video, to the New Order Blue Monday mashup as well, to that Brits performance where she emerges on a vinyl record like that, from the fact that it's been done basically on every single tour ever since, except for the anti-tour. Can't Get You Out of My Head was a mega smash that was #1 in like 600 countries. Maybe that's an exaggeration. And it was a global, career-defining smash. I think when you think of Kylie, you think of that video, you think of that song. You know, whenever I hear Can't Get You Out of My Head, I've heard it so many times, but I still remember what it was like when it was new. It even became a hit in the US, a place which Kylie has never really had a huge amount of success in, and became her first chart hit over there since Locomotion all the way back in 1988. Can't Get You Out of My Head has it all. If I'm not mistaken, I believe Can't Get You Out of My Head was also offered to S Club 7, but their manager turned it down because they didn't think it would suit them. Sophie Ellis-Bextor, but she turned it down because she didn't think it would suit her. And Atomic Kitten also claimed that it was originally going to be their song. I also seem to believe that Victoria Beckham might have been offered the song, but when I googled that I couldn't find anything about it, so I don't know if I imagined that. I do know that, of course, Victoria and Kylie were in a fierce chart battle, as Victoria's debut single, Not Such an Innocent Girl, was released in the same week. It's interesting to think about all these different acts that Can't Get You Out of My Head could have gone to, but none of them could have done it justice the way that Kylie did. And I don't think it would have been as huge a smash if any of those other artists did it. And I think those artists would agree as well. I seem to remember Sophie Ellis-Bextor said in an interview that she wasn't disappointed that she didn't take the song because it probably wouldn't have been as big if she had done it. I just can't get you out of my head. Boy, your loving is all I think about. That's my Sophie Ellis-Bextor impression, ladies and gentlemen, if you ever need to book me for any parties. Like I've said about previous other hits, I could do a whole video on Can't Get You Out of My Head, but I think it's fair we move on to the next single. Follow-up single In Your Eyes was released in February 2002, a whole 5 months after Can't Get You Out of My Head was released, because Can't Get You Out of My Head just like wouldn't leave the airwaves, so they didn't want it to outshine the next release. In Your Eyes is a divine song. I love it. Every time it comes on, I'm always just like, I never skip it. It's very seductive, it's very sensual. It's an absolute Kylie classic. I love it so much. I love when she does it on tour and she sings, I don't feel like coming down, and holds onto the note instead of how it is in the actual album version. In Your Eyes is such a worthy follow-up to Can't Get You Out of My Head. I love as well that it references spinning around too. I remember when I was younger hearing the line, is the world still spinning around? And I remember thinking to myself, wow, Kylie sure likes to rotate a lot, doesn't she? Good for her. Then we have single number 3, Love at First Sight, which was released in June 2002 and it reached number 2 in the singles chart. Love at First Sight is another Kylie classic as well. I mean, that gets done pretty much on every tour. It's often like the sort of penultimate song before the encore a lot of the time. It's so feel good. It always makes me want to dance. It makes me want to just sort of like vibe, you know, like I love in the video it has that sort of like continuous shot as well, even though it wouldn't have been continuous because there are bits where it does sort of change. But I love how it looks like it is just one take. Love at First Sight brings the house down. It's such a wonderful song. A lot of people who I know who aren't even Kylie fans say to me how good a song that is. Got an itchy cheek. I recently watched the Kylie Fever 2002 tour the other day, and Love at First Sight was like the 3rd track, and obviously because it was a new song. In fact, it was actually a recording from before it was even released as a single. And I was just thinking, this is really weird to see Love at First Sight so early on in the set list when usually it's a closer. Then we have single number 4, Come Into My World, the only single from this album not to reach the top 3. That's how powerful this album is. Come Into My World is a beautiful number. And it's Kylie's only ever song to win a Grammy Award as well. Come Into My World has a really cool video as well, where there's multiple Kylies walking down the street. And again, it's only that continuous frame. It's basically the same animation on repeat in the video, but each time it goes round, it's Kylie walking down the street, and each time it goes round, a different Kylie appears, and all the extras in the background also multiply as well. It's really cool, because I remember the first time I watched it, I was a bit like, hang on a minute, what's going on? It's really cool. Come Into My World also has a wonderful remix by Fisher Spooner. It very much sort of changes the song into a sound that's kind of reminiscent a bit of Impossible Princess. This version's been done on tour a couple of times. She performed it on top of the Pops as well. I definitely recommend looking it up because it's an experience. I even did a dance video to it actually when I was 19, which you might still be able to find on this channel, but I may have hidden it. But I probably will hide it soon because my channel is due a bit of a cleanup. So watch it while you can. On to the album tracks. We have More, which is the album's opener. I always appreciate it when a pop act doesn't open an album with their lead single, especially when Can't Get You Out of My Head would be a perfect album opener as well. I feel like More is a perfect transition from Light Years to Fever actually, because it still has that element of like poolside sunset, but it's not as camp as the Light Years sound. It's a little bit sleeker and a little more sexy. And it's very much a good indication of things to come. It very much eases you into the album because it's not a hugely instant track. It's not one of my favourites on the album either, but it does its job very well. I do have to admit though, I can't really say More without thinking of Rachel Stevens. Justice for Rachel Stevens, by the way. Next up, we have the album's title track, Fever. Now, Fever is where it does get a little bit killed. The instrumental and the production of the track isn't particularly camp. It's quite electronic and it's very sleek actually, but the lyrics are very wink wink, nudge nudge. Loads of medical metaphors for naughty things. I love it, right? To promote this album, at the time of its release, Kylie did a special for ITV called An Audience with Kylie Minogue. In the same show, she did a performance of Especially For You with Kermit the Frog. But she also did a performance of Fever. And the performance is very good. Kylie is like on a hospital bed and like writhing around and being all sexy, being very sexy. And it's just funny because it keeps cutting to the audience members and they look really like dumbfounded by it. They're they're looking at Kylie like, what the fuck is this? And it just makes me laugh because like, surely the idea of an audience of Kylie Minogue is to promote the album and make her look good. And this just makes her look crazy. Everyone's just looking at her like, what is she doing? They're freaked out by it. Except it does cut away to June Salprong a few times and she's really getting her life. All the audience members are like, but then it cuts to June every now and then and she's just like, yeah! It's just ridiculous. Next up, we have Give It To Me, which is quite a short and snappy song. It has a lot of bloops and bleeps in it. It's very futuristic sounding. Futuristic is kind of a theme that runs through a lot of this album sound. Give It To Me is basically Kylie saying she needs a good beeping and she wants it now. It's also rather camp. It has a line, I need a shot of love. Reminds me a little bit of Freak Show by Britney Spears on her album Blackout, which came some years later. Do we do a Britney retrospectives? Maybe. Let me know in the comments. Then we got track 6, which is Fragile. And that is the closest thing this album has to a ballad. It's still got a dance, up-tempo beat, but it's a very lovely, sort of tranquil kind of track. There's not that many lyrics to it actually, it's quite minimal. But it's Kylie singing about how she is really into this guy and how, sort of fragile she is when she sees him and how weak at the knees she is. It's very lovely actually. Definitely a nice song to listen to in the bath as well. Kylie's got a lot of bath songs actually. And we got a couple of singles and then it's Dance Floor, which is track 8. No, it's track 9. Sorry. Dance Floor is rather similar to So Now Goodbye from Light Years in the respect that it's like a sassy up-tempo kiss off. It's very kind of like, psh, don't need you anymore. So naturally I love any song like that. Because I like singing them about boys who've never been interested in me in the first place. She's basically saying like, well, you think you got me, boy, just watch me. I love the lyric actually, we're not even friends, so how can we be lovers? And I'm like, ain't that the truth? I like the amount of times you've been ghosted by somebody and you're like quite sad about it, and then you kind of think, well actually, are we even friends? Would we even be friends? You say, oh, I'm happy to stay your friend, but do you actually want to? Then we have Love Affair, which is a gorgeous, little seductive number, very smooth, very sleek. She's singing about having a one-night stand, basically. Because she's saying, like, I'm not here for very long, so let's just get on with it. And one of the lines is, I don't want to think about the sun. Meaning, obviously, the sun in the sky. But every time I sing it, I'm always thinking of, I don't want to think about the Sun newspaper, because the Sun is trash. Not getting a Sun sponsorship anytime soon. But good, because I don't want it. Then we've got Your Love, which is probably the next closest thing we have to a ballad. It's like a sun-drenched disco track. Quite minimal again. Has some nice little Spanish guitars in it. Again, another good bath song. A little underrated gem actually towards the end of the album. And then we have the album's closing track, Burning Up, which I love. It's got a key change in the chorus, and I always love a good key change chorus. It's a little bit more experimental than the rest of the album, I would say, but it's still very much in keeping with the rest of the album. I also appreciate how it works as a closer as well, because it's not a very conventional closing song on a pop album. And Burning Up was used perfectly on tour. She's like emerging on the stage in this giant dress that's like a volcano. And I just think that's so cool. And underneath the dress, like her dancers emerge as well. It's amazing. And Burning Up also got used on the Showgirl tour for an interlude where they had the instrumental for Burning Up and her backing singers did the spoken word bit of Vogue over it. Which is a connection that I love because Burning Up is also the name of a Madonna song as well. So I'm like, as a Madonna and Kylie fan, that makes me very happy. There was a deluxe edition of Fever as well, released just over a year later, which included a bunch of remixes, and it also included a new song called Whenever You Feel Like It, which was also used on the Scooby-Doo soundtrack as well, which is a weird sort of connection because I would never think of Kylie and Scooby-Doo going together, but hey, it was 2002. Yeah, Whenever You Feel Like It is a nice sort of mid-tempo, well, mid to up-tempo track. It's fairly inoffensive, it's got a little key change, which is cool. I find her vocals actually sound a little bit like how they did in the early days, in like the style they're produced, because there's like doubled up vocals on them. We then move on to the B-sides of Fever. Now the B-sides of Fever generally aren't my favourites. I feel like they're good, but I feel like the main body of the album is fine without any of them. You know, sometimes when you've got a B-side and it's like, oh, that should have made the album. That's not the case for Fever. We've got Boy and Rendezvous at Sunset for the B-sides, Can't Get You Out of My Head. I don't really have a great deal to say about either of them, really. Boy is very mid-tempo. The melody reminds me a little bit of Flawless by The Ones, which very sadly is on Spotify, and that is a huge crime. And Rendezvous at Sunset is kind of in that sort of light years vibe again, you know. Obviously the name is Rendezvous at Sunset. So. In Your Eyes has loads of B-sides. It's got Good Like That, which is a sort of mid-tempo number. It's kind of a bit nondescript, but it's okay. You've also got Tightrope, which is a very big fan favourite, and I would actually say maybe Tightrope could have been on the main body album track list instead. And there's also a song called Harmony, which I have to confess I've only heard a few times because it wasn't actually released in the UK, I don't think. But that's a nice little number as well. Nice little hidden gem. And then for Love at First Sight, we have Baby, which was the B-side. Baby is sort of in that similar kiss-off vibe that Dance Floor and So Now Goodbye is in. I like listening to Baby and like walking down the street and sort of feeling like, yeah, you know. And also, Love at First Sight has Can't Get Blue Monday Out of My Head as a B-side, which was then included on the reissue of the album and included on Boombox, the remix album as well. Can't Get Blue Monday Out of My Head, the mashup of Can't Get It Out of My Head and New Order's Blue Monday, been used loads of times. It was done at the Brit Awards first, and then it was used on quite a few of Kylie's tours since then. The songs fit together perfectly, to be fair. Overall, Fever is a very sleek album. I would say it's one of her most cohesive albums, because from start to finish, it is that sort of mid to up-tempo disco vibe, with elements of synth and sort of sci-fi. There's a few sort of like Daft Punk-esque moments as well, like Daft Punk light, if you will. The Fever was a phenomenally successful album, like I said before. It's many a fan's favourite Kylie album. Is it my favourite Kylie album? No, but it's definitely in the top 5. And I've said this before, my Kylie albums ranking does often shift quite a bit, but Fever's always consistently in the top. We haven't actually covered my favourite album yet, so that's exciting. Yeah, overall, Fever is an absolute triumph that takes all the really good parts of Light Years and fine-tunes it, gives it a fresh coat of paint, gives it a sexier image, and it was a worldwide smash. I think Fever was definitely Kylie at her most influential. Quite a few pop releases not long after Fever's release sort of were very in a similar vein. Like some releases by Sophie Ellis-Bextor, Atomic Kitten, and of course the legendary Lisa Scott Lee. Some of their songs like Get Over You, Be With You, and Lately respectively could easily be on Fever. So that does it for another episode of ElliXia's Kylie Retrospectives. Don't forget to like, subscribe, comment if you liked it, don't comment if you didn't enjoy it, share it with your friends, your lovers, your enemies, your co-workers, share it to some random person in the street. Why not? Treat yourself. I've been ElliXia Q Valentine, thank you for joining me as always. I hope you felt the fever today, and join me next week when we'll cool down a little bit with 2003's Body Language. I absolutely love Body Language as well. I'm really looking forward to this one. As always, you know, stay safe and look after yourself. I'm filming this a couple of days before uploading it. God knows what the country is going to be like in that time. So if you need to be self-isolating and social distancing, then please do. I think it's very important that we remember to look after ourselves and one another. And with all that being said, thank you very much for joining me again. I've been ElliXia Q Valentine, and please book me. Mwah.